eggs you had that were 35, 40 years old with freeze-dried ones? You ever eat those yet?
Not yet. It's
Not
the
yet.
Mountain House freeze-dried scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to open that can.
Okay.
It's from the mid-'80s.
And you're looking for volunteers to help you, right?
No, I'm assuming it'll be quite good. It's just one of these days I'll get around to it.
Okay. So what we're going to do is, I've got some thoughts and comments a little bit I put together. I want to walk through this. Then everybody's going to take a couple minutes to give some more thoughts. And then let's do a Q&A, or we may just do Q&A. Each panel member will get their own way of doing it. Now, what I went through is stuff that, so I went back and looked at this and thought about preparedness as we started. All right, for those who don't know, my background is mechanical engineering, and I got 40 years in the industry of hardware design, so I kind of come at things from that approach. So this is, a little more logical. So even when I started, I wasn't quite as logical about it like I would want to be. At the time, I lived in Orlando, Florida. Teenagers. My late wife considered roughing it a Motel 6, but preferably a Holiday Inn was really good. But roughing it, the Motel 6 was really roughing it, if that was even acceptable on the trip. So that was where I was at. And I'm thinking, how are we going to go out in the woods and do anything? This isn't going to cut it. Now, I took my kids camping all the time growing up. We had a program, we went camping once a month. And this was fathers and sons, fathers and daughters. So the wives weren't around. So, let's just say, my wife accused me of losing children. I said, no, we never lost a child. If we went with 5 kids, we came home with 5 kids. And sometimes we have 30 or 20 kids. Now, that didn't mean they weren't temporarily misplaced throughout the weekend for several hours. It happened. Dinner time rolled around, they showed up. So I started looking at how am I going to do this preparedness? How am I going to go forward? What am I going to do? And then I got forward. We have with hurricanes coming through, you get loose power and things like that, and they deal with that. So I started doing all that, started doing a few things, getting the Boy Scout background. Then I came across a book by Dr. Bradley, Arthur T. Bradley, Handbook to Practical Disaster Preparedness for the Family. I like the way he wrote this book. He's got a PhD in electrical engineering. He works for NASA on other books. Another book that some people know about he's written is EMP and Solar Storms, How to Prepare the Supply Plan. He does this for satellites. That's his background. So he understands the subject of EMP, CMEs, and such, and that is the biggest thing we got to concern about. So I went through this book. I kind of reread part of it again over the last couple of weeks. That's how I'm going to put my notes together. So I'm going to run through this, and I'm going to cover this panel. We're going to try to keep my note. We got time and we're working on it. So there are 2 major areas to preparedness. It's physical and mental. All right? So physical. The first thing I would say to do is you want to get prepared before you start buying stuff is do an assessment of your family. Immediate family, relatives, or those close to you. So then when I say assessment of that, well, how many people? What's the size? How many people do you think you got to prepare for? Are you preparing? I mean, this young man over here got two little ones. Are they preparing for the 2 of them, for them? Or, are you an individual? Or are you just preparing for yourself? You got, what are the ages? You got a young family, that's one thing. If, you're one work, the guy work doesn't come a lot wiser than some of the other folks around work. So, I'm at a different stage in life. Health. What's your health? Who thinks they can go put a 50-pound rucksack on and go run to the woods? Yeah. Maybe in our 20s we could, but not anymore. Anybody have any special needs? Physical, medication, those kind of things. What are those? Understand that for each of these individuals. Skills and abilities. Does somebody have, are they a master gardener? Do they have a medical background? Are they a carpenter? These kind of skills, you kind of got to know as you put together who your group is that you're working with, your little circle. Commitment level. if you're doing this and your spouse is not on board, it's going to take a little bit, or the other family members aren't doing work. So what is it? So understand that. As you put this together, you've got this assessment. Then think about your location. And this determines many factors to consider in crisis events. Sources of utilities. Are you in a city? Do you have septic, or are you on a sewer? And realize sewers require power to get stuff from your house to the waste treatment plant. No power, that stuff doesn't flow. Now you got a hygiene problem. Your surroundings, neighbors. Think about that, understand that. Do you live in the city? Do you live in the suburbs, or are you rural? Do you live in a home and an apartment? If you're in an apartment, what floor? These things are all factors in how you've got to understand. You put together an assessment to kind of help build your plan of action. Your social network could be enough. Church groups, friends, others, you might know who's that circle. All right, why are you preparing? Short term? To me, that's less than 3 months. That crisis could last a couple hours, it could last a couple weeks, like the ice storm several years ago around here. Or it could be up to, I kind of use 3 months. Short term, to me that's short. Well, I'm good for 3 months, I can get to the short term. Beyond that, I consider long term. Also, if the event has caused major physical infrastructure damage, for example, the impact of the event, major societal event, that's going to be a long term. That's going to take some while to get things back, so you got to think about that. Okay, threat matrix. Now it's done, you're really good at threat matrix. When you go through, you look at events, what's the likelihood of that event, and what's the impact? An asteroid striking Earth is a major role-ending type of event, but the likelihood is almost very limited. So, do I need to worry about that? No. But you go through various threats, you kind of do this assessment. It's like a trace that you put numbers to each of these, and you factor them, and you come up with a priority list. Okay, here's a list. Here's the most likely event, all the way down to the least likely, based on impact and everything else. So I'm going to worry about these up here, and the rest of the stuff will take care of itself. So. Now, I've done this a couple different times. Well, in Florida, I've used Allen's threat matrix. But what I've come to, both living in Florida and everything else, my perspective is if you're prepared for a long term, more than 3 months, for permanent loss of the power grid, you have redundancy in key systems, water being primary, you're in good shape. If you get to that level, that takes time. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. This takes time to get there. You can deal with pretty much anything that's going to happen. That will provide you and your family, your tribe, your best overall physical capability to survive. All right, the next stage I see, the big key item in preparedness that you need to understand as you start going on this journey, or even if you're on the journey, mental is what I call the mental part of this. Your overall mental strength fortitude will have a far greater impact on you, your ability to survive and thrive in any kind of crisis or event. More so than the physical stuff will. So that's something to think about as you go forward.
Could you speak up just a little louder?
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. I kind of start dropping it down, so please, thank you for telling me. All right, so look at the mental part. I kind of looked at it from this approach. We have 3 circles around us. You have a circle of control. Things you control in your life, which is yourself, your location, your outlook on the world and life, your finances. These are the things you have control over directly. Influence. This will vary. Some of the influences you're going to have will be greater than others. So, the influences that you have. Okay, first one influence you have, your spouse, children, loved ones. And guys, I did not, you notice I put this in influence, but they're going to tell you what you have control over. Yeah. family unit and how people look at things. So it's your influence, your employment, your business, your source of income. You influence it, you may not have control of it, you have influence on it. Your social circle of neighbors. Then you have your circle of concern, which is everything else in the world. You can't do anything about it, but it's there. These are things outside your control and influence. You need to do your best to understand it, what the potential impacts are, and what it may have on your deliverance. Real key item here, do not let your concerns control you. You control your response to them. Take a concern, this potential impact, analyze it with the threat matrix there. Then ask yourself, should I even care about this? If so, what steps can I do to mitigate this risk or impact upon me and my family? From your physical and mental assessment, you use that to develop a preparedness plan. Once you start developing your plan, now you have a way to go forward. So, food, water, things, what you want to need. You've got an idea of really where to focus. Review your strengths, weaknesses, the various physical items above, and start to develop your plan. I'm going to kind of wrap this up here, but a couple other things. Again, always be adaptable. That's key to preparedness. Always be willing to adapt. If someone asks you, why are you preparing? That's crazy. You don't need to do that. Well, here's the response. Anything can happen. And I love my family so much. And I need to ensure their safety and survival. And really, this is just another form of insurance. You have car insurance, right? Life insurance. This is insurance to survive. I can keep my family running. I love it. And trust your gut. When you look at different things and you see some guy advertising that if you don't buy this box here, or this widget here, you won't survive. Well, trust your gut. You really think that's true? Or is it kind of like, yeah, right? I don't think so. So that's kind of where I'm going to stop. I'm going to let those other folks have a chance. Carol, you want to take it?
Well, for those that don't know me, my name is Carol. I'm a retired paramedic, 44 years. I am a food preservationist. I am a master gardener, and I teach food preservation and gardening at the cooperative extension areas around this Webster County and some of the other surrounding counties in the area. My husband and I started doing prepping probably around the time of the ice storm. We decided to be a little bit more prepared. We didn't feel like we were. My main focus has always been on the food, on having food. We have 4 daughters who are, we have spouses and grandkids, and I just set about saying I wasn't gonna let my family go hungry, and that included my kids and grandkids and in-laws, well, some of them anyway. So what we started doing initially with our food stores was we went to the grocery store and we bought 2 of everything. When I used one, so if I used a jar of mayonnaise, then I went back to the grocery store and I bought 2 jars of mayonnaise. So every time I went to the store, I bought 2 of whatever I bought. This pretty quickly added up. I do a lot of gardening, I grow a lot of vegetables, and I do a lot of canning. I freeze dry, I dehydrate, I ferment, I do a lot of all kinds of stuff like that. And then for our medical side of it, because we are pretty well medically set up as far as training is going, we started anytime we would have the opportunity to buy bulk items, whether it be 4x4 gauze sponges or Curlex or nasal airways, things that we could possibly use. package is still sterile. So there's no problem with that. We have gotten stuff, you know, we go to the gun shows and a lot of them will have, medical items there. We have so many red trauma bags, I can't even tell you, we have one in every car. We have several in our basement. I mean, it's just, you kinda get on one thing and you overbuy. You gotta be careful about that. You know, that's what we started doing. We try to, prepare for all areas of, what to do. Our house is total electric, so we have, several, the things that give power. Generators, thank you. We have several generators, yes. And, so we have some things that are redundancies and some things that are, you know, if this fails, we've got this, and if this fails, we've got this. And that's kind of been our thing, is to have redundancies of redundancies, so that we have backups of anything if we need it. So, we even go so far as to having extra clothing, so that if we have to go a long time without buying new clothing, we've got clothing to wear, so that's what we do. Go ahead, Kate.
Hi, my name is Katie. I'm Kobe's daughter. So I would probably say I'm more on the inexperienced side of this panel for sure, because I am pretty young and I'm pretty new into the prepper journey. My dad started during the ice storm, and I didn't really pick it up until I was in my teen years and was starting to kind of understand the state of the world and understanding the necessity of prepping. And that really became very obvious to me during the whole COVID session we had. I realized that it was really nice having access to toilet paper, not having to worry, because my dad had that stockpile already. It was pretty nice. So that really opened my eyes up to how nice it is and how quickly a situation can turn, and nobody saw COVID coming really, and you realize very quickly how nice it is to be prepared. And so the first thing I have to say is, if you're coming from like a situation where you're living in an apartment and you can't do like major changes to your situation, or you're on a fixed income, the best thing you can do is learn. Go on YouTube, learn a skill. If you aren't very familiar with the prepper world, or like situations that can happen, you don't really know what you're being prepared for, I would definitely recommend, reading up on that. There's lots of different things that can happen that you probably have not thought about, and it's hard to be prepared for something that you don't know what it is, or how to handle it, or the likelihood of it happening. So definitely do your research. It's completely free to go online to YouTube and watch videos of more experienced people. Learn how to store food. If you're, like, I personally live in an apartment, so one of the first things I did was I started figuring out food options that are easy to store, that I can keep on hand, and I don't have to worry about them expiring too quickly, or if we lose power, I can still cook it. Ultimately, my main plan is to find a way to get to my dad, because he has the resources that I don't have. So in the same way, find people around you that can also kind of help with your blind spots, areas that you can't really, you don't really have control over. That's why we have these networking times, so you can meet people that can benefit you, help you in areas that you need help in, either teach you the skill, help you learn how to use your resources that you already have. So definitely, when you're at these meetings, get to know people, see what kind of different skills we have. It's a great way to kind of boost your preparedness without spending any money. So definitely, you guys are already on the right step. Coming to a meeting, it's really simple, easy, just a couple hours out of the month, and you're already better prepared than a lot of people out there. So just keep that in mind, that you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money right off the bat. Take a minute, figure out what you're doing first. Get the knowledge and know where to start, because if you start off on the wrong foot, you might not be helping yourself at all. So definitely take time and learn first, so you know where you're starting. So figure out what your resources are that you already have, and build up from there. Figure out what you want to be prepared for. So if you're more on the lighter side of prepping, like, oh, if I lose power, what's my options here. How do I get food and water right off the bat? Versus how am I gonna be prepared if I have to be off the grid for months on end? You have to start somewhere, so just know where that beginning is.
That's good. I really don't know where to fill in after all this. My name is Alan. Little background. My dad was real conservative, real frugal. As a kid, I was a Boy Scout. After graduating high school, I ended up in the Navy for 6 years, saw some of the rest of the world and how people lived there. That kind of opened my eyes to most Americans don't have a clue how things could be. Let's see. I didn't have a prepared presentation, so I tend to ramble one, so somebody get the big hook. Dan covered most of the stuff. I would say that the ultimate end state, I think, for good preparedness is a relatively self-sufficient, self-reliant homestead, where you produce your own food, produce your own water, produce your own electricity. Basically, if the grid should go down, you can live okay for an extended period of time. You mentioned YouTubes and stuff. It's a tremendous resource that wasn't around decades ago. A couple of interesting things, I think, that there's how many are familiar with Pastor Joe Fox? He has a YouTube channel, show of hands. Mayor Independent, also known as TJ Morris. I was listening to a Mayor Independent YouTube last week, and he referenced I think they call them content creators on YouTube. Anyhow, her name is Laurel, and she had apparently done a series that he talked about, it was good, called The Collapse. And it was basically a weekly thing, 10, 15 minutes each. And Bear was saying that it was pretty realistic, and I thought, well, I'll listen to it. And as it turns out, she started this, there's, I think, 20 episodes in season 1, and she's into 2 episodes in season 2. Most of season 1 was done about 4 years ago. But I highly recommend listening to it. It's free on YouTube. They're about 10 minutes each. She's got a little advertising spiel normally at the end of it. But that's really good. And something else, and it's basically some things to think about what could happen. And another thing, who else familiar with William Fortune's book, 1 Second After? It has to do with an electromagnetic pulse, and I think it takes place in North Carolina. It's fiction, but I think Ted Koppel do the foreword for that?
He may have, I don't know about that.
Anyhow.
Ted Koppel did do the book on Lights Out, which is the cyber attack on the grid.
And William Fortune had another book called Day of Wrath. The thing with the electromagnetic pulse, it requires an enemy that's got the wherewithal to A, get a nuclear weapon, and B, have the capability to launch a couple hundred miles up over the central United States to take out the electric grid and take out basically all electronics for a while. The Day of Wrath was a similar thing, except it was much more low-tech. It had some jihadists that had snuck into the country, and how could that possibly happen? They came across the southern border. This was written, I think, 6 years ago. Anyhow, they came across the southern border. I won't tell you what they did, but basically they caused a lot of havoc. And the collapses, there was a YouTube series by Laurel, was a little bit similar, except the perpetrators there's 100 of them, and they do something else that makes us without electricity for a while. So I'll shut up, otherwise I'll be rambling, and you guys will say, get him off there.
Thank you all. All right, thank you. I wanted to open this up now, so for questions. Anybody have questions for any of us up here? You might like to ask a clarification or anything? Okay. Oh, there we go.
One of the questions I had is, I have natural gas, and it's my understanding that the delivery of natural gas is dependent upon electric, is that right?
I'm not 100% understand, so is the delivery of natural gas depending on electric?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, this young lady has a natural gas delivery to her home. Is that dependent on the power grid?
Yes.
Okay,
I used to work for city utilities. I'm an electrical engineer, so I know more about electric, but, I do know that the natural, years ago, my understanding is that a lot of the natural gas pumping stations had, engines that ran on natural gas. But they found with the maintenance on them and everything, it was a lot cheaper to have electric motors to pump the gas. And so my understanding is, that nowadays, that if the grid goes down, and some of the pumping stations may have backup generators, but they don't run forever unless you can refuel them. It's,
And they take diesel, don't they?
say again,
Aren't they diesel?
diesel? I would assume so. For normally large-scale generators, diesel is more efficient, mainly it stores for a much longer time. For a home type, compared to some people that have propane generators, because it stores virtually indefinitely, and you get a 1,000-gallon propane tank and a 8 to 10 kW generator, it can run a good while, but not forever.
yeah, most backup generators like that for large utilities, I think they got 3 to 5 days with the diesel and that's it. So if they don't get power back to it, yeah,
Most planning assumes that trucks will deliver more fuel.
right.
And if the grid goes down, which hasn't ever happened, that we've made a lot of enemies throughout the world. And some of them have the wherewithal to take our grid down. And I used to kind of poo-poo the idea of hacking from, nation states, China or whatnot, but I'm becoming more convinced that the feasibility of somebody taking our grid down remotely by hacking into it is more feasible than I used to think it was. I still think the odds are fairly low.
Other questions? All right, anybody got anything? Yes, sir.
What size generator, what power generator did you say?
What size generator, Alan?
To do what?
What you just mentioned it for your house.
Well, okay. You know, generator size you need, so what do you want to run?
Well,
I mean,
I
it's-
just wanted to know what size he said.
I
I
don't
know
know.
it's 1,000-pound, tank. or
Well,
something.
okay.
I don't have anything clear, I'm just asking a question.
No, I put that back to you, because you need to understand, again, what do you want to run?
I just wanted to know what he said. I don't want to tell you what I want to run.
Okay, but if you understand what you want to run, I'll tell you which power you need. So, I'll give you an example of my case. I've got 3 generators in my home. I've got a little 3,200 watt inverter generator for my camper. I've got about a 9,500 generator. They're both dual fuel, gas or propane. And I just recently bought a 13,000 watt, 13 kilowatt generator. And I have 3 generators. I put transfer switches in the 2 homes I have. I live in one, my son rents the other house from me. I went, when I moved out here from Orlando 2.5 years ago, I spent the money to put the propane infrastructure in my house. I then went and purchased a 1,000-gallon propane tank and filled it. Right now, all I run on that 1,000-gallon tank is my gas stove and my barbecue grill. So I don't go through propane a whole lot. But I have the ability to plug the generator in to run my house, because to me, the important thing's there. This is why I asked what do you want to run. I have a 2 horsepower well pump for my deep well, doing both homes. I have to make sure I have water because water's cheap. I then want to run my 3 freezers in the garage, well, 2 of them full of meat. I don't want to lose that, that's a big investment. And I got my fridge in the house. Those are my 2 main factors, and I've added some other things on there I want to make sure I have running. So that's how I look at it. Again, when it comes to generating, what do you need it to run? So, Alan, anything you want to add to that?
That's the same thing if you want to have a solar system. If you want to have a solar system, if relatively small solar system, if all you want to do is be able to power your refrigerators and freezers and stuff like that.
What would it take to run power my well house?
How deep's your well?
Don't know, we bought it, they say it's never deep, I guess it's 600 feet, I don't know.
It's in this area somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume it's somewhere in the 400 to 450 foot deep range, and you got at least a minimum of 3/4 horse well pump, maybe 1 horse, maybe 1.5.
It's size.
Pardon?
They didn't tell me, but it's, Gilman didn't tell me we get these small properties, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a deep well, and it's oversized.
I have years ago when we had an ice storm, I was basically keeping 4 houses running, ours and 3 relatives, with generators backfeeding the house. And at our house, we're just barely outside Springfield, we're on a well and a septic. And at the time, I think it's a 3,500 watt generator. Maybe it's 5 kW, I don't remember. Anyhow, I was able to run the well. If you're not using a well pump, it uses a lot of electricity, like any motor, when it's starting up. So it has a big surge. So you have to have a generator or something, whatever you're powering with, has to have the capability to handle that surge. It may only be a fraction of a second, a third, a quarter, half a second. But to get that going, and you can get devices, slow start devices, soft start, to mitigate that. I'm rambling. Anyhow, probably, I would say a 5 kW generator, most well pumps are going to be 240 volts if it's a deep well. And so a 5 kW generator, with most wells, I would be pretty comfortable with that. The bottom line is, I wouldn't get a generator and have it all set up to hook in and power the well, and then wait until the power goes out to see if it really works. Like a lot of things, test it to make sure it works, you know. You're going deer hunting, sighting the rifle before you climb up in your tree stand on opening morning.
And on that too, I have found, since I've always had city water until I moved here rural 2.5 years ago, I've already had to put a control box in for my well. I've got about 250, 300 foot deep well. It's a 2 horsepower, but I'm doing 2 homes. So if you look at the control box, it should tell you I'm there. And yeah, I put the 13,000 watt generator, because I'm running another line besides just the well.
So how many solar panels do you need?
Okay.
Dan?
I've got a field over there, right?
That's what the whole next discussion's about. We're gonna get into all the details on that.
On that, if I don't mind to tell you real quick.
Real quick.
I went to Missouri Wind and Solar. It's an hour east of here. They go through this DIY solar wind. I got an estimate to take my well pump totally on solar. That's about $10,000. So it's about 3,000 watts of solar panels. There were 3 batteries, 48 volt, 5 kilowatt batteries. Give me the power I need, plus the backup system. The batteries are about 2,000 each, so that's your biggest expense. But that's going off grid with my well pump only. So that's just from last, I got that in November. So in case you and I did start, we talk to people, I think they can help you out. Yes, ma'am.
We lost our freezer full of meat with this glitch that, it's freeze kind of off, and we were wondering where things in this area get more meat. We had, a deer hunter on a property, he gave us some meat from his buck, but now everything's gone. All of it, it's just a bunch of blood, and there's nothing.
You know, the meat I got.
Dan, can you repeat the question? Couldn't hear it over here.
She had, in the recent power outage, they lost all their meat. What are good sources for getting meat? And I'm gonna turn this over to Carol, because she's our food expert.
There are several discount groceries where you can buy meat, at a discount, and if you, I'll give you an example. The discount grocery in Marshfield is called Penny Pinchers, and, they have a loyalty and rewards program. When you spend so much money, then you get, a card, and when that card's stamped off, with your loyalty points, then you get $10 off your grocery deal. They often have 40 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breasts for $40.
Is that frozen?
Frozen. I get that meat, for $40, and I save my loyalty cards for that, so I get 40 pounds for $30. A boneless, skinless chicken breast, which I can up into pints, and I get, 48 pints of, chicken breast. By the way, if anybody is wanting to learn how to pressure can, I have a class on the 17th in Marshfield on pressure canning. Tip the mic. So, if you want more information about that, see me, and I'll give you some info.
Sir, do you have a question? I thought there was somebody back there raising their hands. Anybody else? I'll take that.
Well, it's a question, this is something I can experience at a pressure cook once, something like that.
Give him the mic.
Hold it up here.
Hold it up there.
Yeah, I was in a pressure cook once up here in Springfield, the fair, a few years ago, selling fireworks stores up there. But I was telling people, find the stuff right here, share with your friends, tell people we got the stuff, you can store food. And everything. Sorry about that, I can't even hear myself think. But anyways, I was telling all these people this, and I had one of the guys came over to me, and he goes, Franklin, you're wasting your breath. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, they're not gonna tell anybody that you got this stuff. And I said, why? Because they're here to help people. And he said, if they tell people about this, they'll know you got food. And they want you to come around. They want you to know that they got food. And I said, well, aren't you supposed to help people everywhere? Is that what goes on with people that's doing serious trucking maybe or something? Or am I just crazy for people doing that?
So, hey, there's probably a lot of different thoughts on that. Yeah, we're always concerned that if you let people know you got stuff, they're gonna show up at your doorstep. So, how do you deal with that? So you wanna have operational security, you wanna keep things quiet, but then again, you may not know that your neighbor 2 doors down is doing the same thing. So, you take your time, and like, for the podcast, you have barbecues where you invite some of your neighbors over, and you have discussions, you talk, you tell them who is who can you talk about, because, you know, that's how you grow. Now, personal experience, again, living in Central Florida, we had these things called hurricanes come through. You know, one year we had Charlie took out my AC, that went across the eastern side of Orlando, and I live on the western side. 2 weeks later, Francis came across us. 2 weeks after that, Gene came across. But yeah, hurricanes crisscrossing the state. I didn't lose power. But you learn to do stuff, and if that one or the one a couple of years later, and you lose track, you get one every couple of years, you kind of lose track of them. I was talking we lost power for several days. I was talking to my neighbors about it. They were asking, I get this, I'm fine, I'm not worried about it. Really? So, yeah, I'm kind of doing some preparedness stuff. They go, oh, really? I said, yeah. So I gave each of them a book. One was my, I think Jim Cobb, Long-Term Preparedness. The other one was another book that Dr. Bradley wrote on 50 items to be prepared. And I gave it to each of them. I said, take a look at this. This gives you an idea how you can think better for your family. They're like, okay. I got one book back, the other book I never got back. Did he do more with it? I don't know. But I shared the information. So they knew I had stuff I didn't really tell them what. So be careful what you tell people. Family, yes. Some friends, if they just show up and they haven't done a darn thing, well, you want to politely tell them to go away. And hopefully you don't have to be very forceful to tell them to go away. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Dan, we've got to move on to the
We
next
can wrap it up
subject.
here, so, fabulous, thank you. And I'm gonna turn it back over to Cody and talk about energy solutions.
Electrical stuff. thank you, Dan, Carol, Katie, and Alan, thank you. We'll move on to our second subject tonight, which is electrical options. We've actually got 3 different sets of speakers on that. So first, we've got 15 to 20 minutes with John and Kelly. John and Kelly are relatively new being here, but they've watched us online. They live over 2 hours away, and so they made the commitment to come to the meetings because they feel it's important. And tonight, they're going to tell us about their prepared steps, things that they've done in their home. And so come on up, John and Kelly. You want? You need a microphone? No, okay.
Good evening. My name is John, my wife Kelly, we're from Sedalia. We're going to make a trip. The reason we got started into auxiliary power is, like Dan mentioned, I'm not sitting around the kitchen table with a candle eating a can of cold beans. Just not happening. To jump into this, what we started with is this, a 1,000-watt inverter. I'm going to hook it up to the truck battery. I was going to bring the cords into the house, the extension cords, and we're going to run our refrigerator. Nope. The truck has to be running to produce enough power to keep that thing running. So, this is useless for us. So then we talked about it. In the meantime, I bought a pellet stove. I retired. I've been 13 years on the road as a mechanic, and I finally retired. We bought a mobile home, moved into a mobile home park. They did allow us to have this. The trouble is, when the power goes off, this just fills the house up full of smoke. So I had to come up with something better. Hence, we came up with one of these solar generators. This is a 3,600 watt generator, which means I can run 3,600 watts on this for about 45 minutes. It only has a 3,000 watt battery. But what I can tell you I can run off it for a long time is my refrigerator, my deep freeze, my ham radio. I can charge my other ham radio. We can run, I have 8 of these lights, 12 volt. We ran the TV, the internet, and the electric recliner. When the refrigerator wasn't running, which is, it only runs for a little bit, this sits behind the recliner. This cord will reach my refrigerator, my can opener, and my microwave and coffee pot. How long does your coffee pot run? 3-4 minutes? Make a pot of coffee. With all that stuff running, we got 17 hours, and it ran it down to 25%. Our program is to get up in the morning. I have a 2,000 watt Honda. I think Dan mentioned he's got one too, an inverter. It takes 2 hours to charge this. So I start it up, it's on the porch, I run for 2 hours, get charged into this, and I get easily another 12 hours. 6 o'clock at night, I charge it up again. My generator runs for 4 hours a day. And I have basically all the luxuries I need. I have several adapters. I have a lot of things to make it easier for me. But this unit, la-di-da-la-da, we got it on sale, didn't pay tax, we got free shipping, I got a discount from one of the Purple channels. It cost $2,000. There's another one down there. They're $700-800. depending on what you want to do, we have to have the money. I have some Harbor Freight solar panels, 400 watts total. Trouble is, it takes 2 days to charge this thing, hence the generator. But I can do it if I want to. You have several options with the bigger unit. You have several more options. I don't know what else to say. Any questions? No? Go ahead, ma'am.
What's the brand of that?
This happens to be an Opus, but there's several brands. Blue Yeti, Patriot. There's several brands. That brand over there, I've not heard of it, but
What was the second one you listed? You said Patriot, OPS, and what was the other one?
Blue Yeti.
how you doing?
2 hour charge time, at what percentage were you starting from on your daily usage around 2 hours charge? Are you starting like from 50%?
25%.
Taking it down to 25
Yes.
each day? To bring it back. What do you charge it with?
I have a little Honda suitcase generator, 2,000 watt. It's an inverter type. So we run it down to 25%. Yes, it is. I have 6 5-gallon jerry cans, the metal ones, make in the shed. We rotate that. That'll last me a long time.
On your pellet stove?
Yes.
Have you run it off of this?
It runs off of this continuously. What we do,
So that's part of what's pulling you down to 25%.
yes,
Pellet stove.
the pellet stove, it's got a heater element in it to start it up. I can't read this. Anyways,
Couple of
it
fans,
draws 400 watts,
couple of fans and the feeder motor.
once it's running, draws 80 watts. And that lasts a long time.
How much does this unit cost?
$2,000, a flat, $1999.99. We got a discount through one of the prepper programs, free sales tax, no sales tax, and free delivery, plus it was on sale. We use it, and I call it, what do you call it, USB? So your computer never shuts off from the power fittings?
There's USB power, yeah, for you to charge your cell phone or charge small
Yes.
electronics.
So I always have this plugged in. I've got my pellet stove plugged in. I have multiple ham radios plugged in. My easy chair. Last thing I want to do is have to get out of that when the lights go out. So those things are continuous. The weather radio's hooked into this all the time. That's all I worry about. If I'm in bed sleeping, I just make sure the pellet stove stays running. My refrigerator, you all know, you got 4 or 5 hours before you gotta get something done today. I wake up in the morning and first thing we do is start the generator up, charge it back up. It's got how long you have left and how much charge you have, how many watts you're drawing. You people over there can't see. After we get done, come up and I'll tell you all about it. But, so, the advertise, this will run your whole house. Yeah, it will, for about 5 minutes. You can run 2 electric heaters on this. Let me see, 1,500 watts a piece, that's 3,000 watts. You're gonna get an hour out of 2 electric heaters. So don't let the advertisers lie to you, I don't care what you say. That Chevy pickup with that 6.0, you ain't getting 22 miles to the gallon. It's just not gonna work. But I will tell you, actual use, you can get, we got 17 hours, had 25% left. I probably could have gone to 20 hours to run it right down. I don't like to do that, but, my goal is to be comfortable when everybody else is sitting around, walking around with a candle. I just chose not to do that. We string these lights up. They've got pretty long cords. And if it's not long enough, I have extensions where I can run these the whole length of the mobile home if I have to. It's just convenient, very convenient.
So John, let me ask you this. You said about 2,000 on the inverter. How much on your Honda generator approximately cost?
It's a 2,000 watt generator, and of course, there again, they always lie. And it's smiling because he knows where I'm going. It'll say, oh yeah, I have a 5,000 watt generator. Then you read that little print, you're only gonna get 3,500, maybe 4,000 watts out of it, continuous. So my little Honda, I'll get 1,800 watts.
How much does it cost?
Cost, the generator, they're $1,000, I think, 1,000 to 1,200.
Okay, so I'm trying to just, so 2,000 into the, what we call the solar generator, and that comes, it did not come with the panels, you bought the panels separately.
Harbor Freight.
Okay, so you have 2,000 into that, 1,000 into the generator, and then the 4 solar panels cost.
They were on sale, and I've had them for 10 years.
Yeah, 150 for the kit.
Yes.
The actual kit.
Okay, kit with
Hundred
controller and
watts,
everything,
100
okay.
watts of panels, the solar charger, 2 of these light bulb things.
Okay, so you get a lot of stuff, kind of getting at, so 3,000, 3,500, your plan, which I think is a really great plan, is you can run, pretty much 24 hours almost.
Yes.
So 17 hours on this, you charge it twice during that time period
24-hour period.
with your little generator, and then as long as you've got gasoline,
30 gallons will last me every bit of 2 weeks.
okay, or maybe longer.
Yes.
If you're only using it for 4 hours, those generators are pretty fuel efficient.
It holds 0.8 gallons, and you get 6-8 hours out of that.
Yeah.
Now that's at half speed, full torque, which you're using, you get 5 hours.
Okay, so 30 gallons of gas might should get you a month.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Wonderful.
All this stuff, except for the ham radios, fits in this box. And I've got it labeled, it sits in my closet, so if something does happen, we're not into panic mode, trying to find all this stuff. Kelly goes right to the closet and gets it and just plugs in a few things. I keep this cord, which runs the refrigerator in the kitchen, right next to it. The one for the freezer, I have it sitting beside the freezer between it and the wall. I make sure I block that cooling fan, but I'll do something different with that. But everything's combined.
John, you mentioned to me earlier, you keep this thing charged and ready to go.
It's plugged in all the time.
So you plug it into a normal outlet at your house while you still have electricity, and you keep it charged. So your first 17 hours is ready to go. After that, if you still don't have electricity off the grid, then you charge it either solar, and you told me how long, if you were to use the 4 solar panels, how long would it take you to charge it?
It'll take 2 days.
2 days, okay? And that's based on 2 sunny days, by the way.
Yes.
We don't always have 2 sunny days in a row. But he charges it with the generator because it'll charge it in 2 hours. So it can't charge solar, that's why they call it a solar generator. But
With more solar panels, shorten it down.
absolutely, the more solar panels you add, at approximately $100 a panel, the faster it'll charge.
I got a question for him. That deal there, you said you could run a refrigerator or a deep freeze with it.
Yes,
You said you can run a refrigerator, deep freezer. My question is, when that starts losing power, can that burn the pump out in your refrigerator and your deep freezer, but it's not putting enough power?
no. The newer batteries are not like this battery. Gel cell, this is a gel, but regular car battery. With my electrical engineer. Your car battery goes like this. Okay, when it gets down to 11.5 volts, 10 volts, it's done. These newer batteries, lithium ion. Okay, they go straight across, steady voltage, and then boom. So when this thing hits 0, you're done.
But until that point, it will stay enough power coming out of it to run the refrigerator.
Yes.
And then it'll just shut itself off.
It'll shut itself off.
So it won't let you burn up your pumps in there, or anything.
Correct.
I was wondering about that.
Yes, that's a good question too. And I don't know if I would charge this off of a regular, I don't know what generator that is. I wouldn't use that generator to charge this. Because of the electronics in here, you want that pure sine wave?
That might be a pure, that might be a good sine wave.
Okay.
If you do want a pure sine wave, that is
It
correct.
is pure sine, okay.
I don't know that this one is, but you do want one.
Yes, yes.
I think we'll talk about it here. Good.
Just something to keep in mind.
Question back here?
Go.
I was just gonna say, refrigerators and freezers don't run continually, they
No,
start
I mean,
up,
the initial
charge
start,
up, and they stop.
On anything, like a motor or stuff, the initial start, it really pulls the power.
Yeah.
And then it's gotta run, and I was just wondering, if the power stops dropping, the amperage ain't there and everything, is it gonna short something out or burn something out? You know?
That type should not.
Because your electric company, they won't pay for nothing, because the voltage will drop on your house, if you ever notice that your lights go dim and stuff. And they say it can burn your appliances up.
Anything's possible, but those are specifically designed not to.
They'll kick themselves off. As soon as there's too much pull and it ain't there, it'll kick itself off. That'd be good.
John, we had a question back here.
Surge, how much is the surge? 7,000?
Yeah, so his unit is 3,600 watts, that's 3,600 watts per hour rate of continuous, and a 7,000 watt surge for starting that motor. Now again, it's got a 3,000 watt battery, so if you're using full power, it's gonna last less than an hour, but you can use low voltage and he gets 17 hours out of it. Good. And
Hello. My question is, I like the idea that you have the solar generator and then a fuel generator to assist. I have a solar system that I've been putting together, but I know it's not gonna run my well, and that's the only thing that I'm trying to cover from this point out. So obviously I have to get a fuel powered second generator like what you've got. I don't know what kind of connectors I will need for my breaker, because I've never done any of this before, so if you could, or somebody could talk about that.
I will, in my presentation here, unless you want to answer, I've specifically got slides, and we'll talk
Okay.
about water wells and generator selections and connections.
That's my big interest.
We will get to it before you leave tonight, if we don't run out of time. Okay.
How many discharge, charge cycles is that battery good for?
30,000, 10 years. They've gotten that good. And now, they're gone.
It's okay,
Real quick, this is not a 220 unit. This alone will not run a well. Take another one of these, stack it on top, and you get the converter box. It'll run a 220. It will run your well.
If you get two of them.
Two of them, stack them on top. So it will not run your well very long, but how long did your well actually run? I had a well that would fill up my charge tank, my pressure tank. It run for minute, 2 minutes, and then shut off. That gives you enough to flush the toilet. I can take a quick shower, and still give you a quick water. You gotta keep that in mind. That's why I run a watt meter. There's several of these, you got some down there, cheap, 10, 14 bucks. It tells me how much I'm using.
It's all under the house.
That's 20 minutes, that's all they gave me. Any other questions? Wait, I know you had one. No?
Okay, thank you, John and Kelly, I appreciate it. And their stuff is gonna be here, please come up and talk to them at the end of the night, and ask questions and look at their stuff. All this stuff that we bring, we don't bring it as free samples for you to take home. But we do bring it for you to come up and look and take a picture and that type of thing, and get hands-on with it and look at it, so there's stuff that we can send like. Alan, you are next.
Hurry up.
That's the right way. Move that mic towards the right corner of your mouth. Yeah, that's all. It's just put on top.
Test 1, 2.
There you go.
Objective.
Presentation. Alan's got some notes, so I will stay back here and walk through the notes.
I would like to add this, it's called a KILLA WAPP kilowatt meter. Everybody ought to get one of these. You plug it in to an outlet or an extension cord, and whatever you're wanting to find out how much power it consumes, you plug it in here. For instance, a coffee maker. It may draw a bunch of power right when it starts up, or a refrigerator. But the nice thing about this, yes, good enough? Nice thing about this, it'll tell you your total watt hours, the total power you consume, not just how fast you're consuming power, but the total power you consume. So a refrigerator, for instance, if you're not opening the door very much, it won't really consume much. The compressor will come on, and it may run for 2, 3, 5 minutes, and then the compressor may be off for 2 hours, but the refrigerator is still plugged in. So the nice thing about these is, gotta get this right. Can you still hear me? Yep. Okay.
How long do you leave it plugged in?
Oh, this basically just passes through the power and measures how fast you're consuming it. It'll tell you your voltage, it'll tell you how many amps it's drawing, and then let's say I plug it in at midnight, and then I go check it at 6 o'clock in the morning. It'll tell you how much total power you consume during that total time.
So overnight is enough time to leave it plugged in to get to a reading?
For refrigerators or a freezer, to get a good average, I leave it in a couple of days. And if you, let's say you've got a chest freezer out in the garage, and it's not in the summertime in the garage, it's probably going to consume a little more power in the summertime because it's got to work a little harder than in the wintertime when it's probably cooler in the garage. But these are fairly cheap. You get them Amazon, I think they even sell them at Walmart. Most of your big box stores, Lowe's, Home Depot, and stuff like that, probably have them. They're a real handy little tool, and they're not very expensive. It's good to learn about and stuff too. Laser pointer. Okay. Like I said, I'm a retired electrical engineer, and I used to be an electronics technician in the Navy. I sent this to Kobe, it's either last night or the night, I think it was the night before, but apparently the internet demons were interceding, and he didn't get it. So normally you send him your handout, he'll print it out. I printed out 14 copies, obviously not enough, so I don't know who all got it. But my first these YouTubes, and also I did a PDF of this, and this is a Word document, and if you want a copy of this, you can look at it on your computer, and you can just click on these to look at these YouTubes. Ask Kobe, they'll send it to you, right?
Yes.
Or they'll give you my email address, and I'll send it to you. But some good YouTubes here.
We will post a
here.
copy of the notes online.
Yeah. My first system, I got
If
8.
you're losing batteries, you may need to switch to a handheld.
I do?
Well, you're losing, it sounds like I'm losing you.
Oh, I can do.
You're cutting in and out.
Oh. Well, I don't want to cut it now. Okay. Hear me okay now?
Yes.
My first system was a do-it-yourself, and it's generally based on one or several of these YouTubes. I got 8 280 amp hour, 3.2 volt lithium iron phosphate cells to connect in. I won't worry with all the details, but basically make a 12 volt battery. They would have taken about the same amount of space as this. And along with that, I got a 280 lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're a little different from old lead acid technology. They have to have some electronics to manage the battery so that you don't charge it too fast, discharge it too fast. For that particular technology, you cannot charge it when it's below freezing. And so the battery management system monitors all that, and well, I'll get to something else in here. Anyhow, basically 3 main things. A bunch of different cells to come up with 12 volts total for the battery. A battery management system that monitors the charge and discharge rate and does equalizing on all 8 of those cells, and then a 2,000 watt pure sine wave inverter, 12 volts to 120 volts AC. And the reason I went with that Samlex is because I'm a radio operator also, and they're known to have real low, they don't make much noise, RF noise. I bought the components in 2022 and in order to power overhead doors and lights and an audio-visual system in my barn out in Webster County. But if you look at those YouTubes, some people advocate that you compress these cells a little bit, and some people say you don't need to, and I was kind of waffling on do I compress them or not. The long and short of it was, I had a workshop planned in the barn coming up pretty soon, and I wasn't going to get this done in time. So I bought a Blue Eddy, which is down, how did I make this go down? Let's see, there we go. And I've been using, this is a Blue Eddy AC200P. It's fairly similar to this, except a little bit smaller. As you can see, it's just 2,000 watts output. It'll do 4,800 watt surge. It's 2,000 watt hour capacity. It'll power something 2,000 watts for 1 hour, or 1,000 watts for 2 hours, or 500 watts for 4 hours to come up with 2,000 watt hours. It has, all these are 6 different receptacles you can plug stuff into. I think it's got USB charger, a whole bunch of lot. I power that with 3 250 watt solar panels leaning up against the outside of the barn, and from basically 2022 until recently, this was the whole thing that powered my barn. Lights, the overhead, motors for the overhead doors, and the sound system in there. I like to listen to these blues real loud. Man, buy some rock. So I would rock out in the barn powered by this. Now, let's see. Whoops, that was too fast. Okay, there's, how do I just creep it down? There we go. That's my Blue Eddy. It's a lot like this one, except a little bit smaller. It's, I didn't have a shelf over there, so I've got a laminated beam up above, and I suspended it from it. It's hanging there. It's got handles on it, kind of like these handles here. Weighs about 67 pounds, so they're not really lightweight. And anyhow, that's where I had it mounted. And these are the 3 250 watt solar panels. Years ago, a friend of mine was doing solar installs, and he got a good deal on panels, and I ended up buying 20 of them. And these are 3 of them. That's all I needed. 250 watts, and it kept that thing full charge pretty much most of the time. That's just a real quick and dirty mount there. It's just something to support the bottom, and they're laid up against the concrete stem wall, and that wall is facing pretty much due south. And as you can see, there's some shadows from tree limbs on there. If you're doing, it's a whole other topic, but if you're doing a solar system, ideally you want your solar panels someplace where they won't be shaded, because a little bit of shade knocks out a whole lot of your power generation. Okay. My final system is it's going to power. It'll be able to power the whole house. You can see a telephone pole in the background there. That's along the road in front of our place out in Webster County. Runs that way, and I dug a ditch 5 to 6 feet deep from that pole all the way up to where this transformer is. And Webster Electric came out and ran a primary line down the pole through the ditch and came up in the transformer there. It's not quite as tilted now as it looked there. They came out level a little bit. Then the secondary from the transformer over to the meter box and disconnect on the side of my barn. This system, I've got this, it consists of my solar part of this is one Solar 15K all-in-one charge controller and inverter, and 6 EG4 52 volt lithium ion phosphate batteries, and 36 460 watt solar panels. With all that, I should be able to power the house. Basically, we're grid tied. We will be grid tied when the house is done. The barn's grid tied now. Then, if the grid goes down, it'll just start running off of the battery or the solar panels if the sun's out. Let's see. My original inclination as a prepper was to be totally off grid. I figured, why bother with the grid electricity if you don't need it? But I know several folks who are completely off grid because it was going to cost a ridiculous amount of money to bring power to where they were building their house. And so they pretty much had to go off grid, and they've advised me that if you got the grid close by, electricity, and it's not too expensive, you got a grid tie.
Why?
Just for backup. Solar power, like everything else, you can have problems with it. And for instance, this is the meter box on the side of the barn. Let's see. The power from that transformer comes in here. That's right here. And on Webster Electric, we've had it. Ray, how long have we had it now? A month? 45 days. And now it's not a whole house, it's just a barn, but I've been doing quite a bit of stuff in it. Our electricity cost was $3. $3, we just got the bill, $2. But the cost to be connected to the grid, your connection charge is just to be hooked onto the grid, was around $30. So I'm going to pay $30 to Webster Electric every month, whether I use even a little, if I don't use any electricity at all, that's just the cost to be tied to them. And you can get by with a lot smaller solar system, a lot less than 30 panels, 36 panels, for a lot cheaper, and you can kind of use the grid as your battery. There's a thing called net meter. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. But anyhow, the power from the grid comes in here, and it comes in there and goes up above the meter. The meter meters it, and it comes back down to 2 breakers here. That's a 200 amp breaker and another 200 amp breaker. And this was a 20 amp breaker for just auxiliary stuff, and right now it's powering a receptacle I put on the outside. This breaker here is going inside the barn to my 200 amp panel that powers the barn now. And this breaker will go through that conduit there and power the Solar 15K for my solar system, which is right here. Toby, can you make it go up just a little bit? There we go. Not quite back down some, okay. That's the Solar 15K all-in-one. They're fairly new. bought this late last year. Late last year because there was I think it was a 30% tax credit for certain green energy type stuff, this qualified. And so anyhow, Solar makes a EMP protected 15K now, which had it been available when I got this, I probably would have gotten that. But this is my 200 amp panel with the face removed, that it's just a regular electric panel. It's going to feed the barn, non-critical loads. This is my server rack batteries. Each one of these is a basically 5 kWh 48 volt battery, and there's 6 of them in there. There we go. They will be connected. They'll be connected to the Solar here, and the grid will connect to the Solar. And next page down here, this is the guts of it. Your grid comes in here. It'll come in via that other conduit we saw a minute ago. This load will go to the house via a branch circuit going to the house. If I want to hook a generator up to this, and this Solar has the capability to where if the battery, if the grid goes down, it will power from the battery or solar panels. And if the sun's not out or the battery gets too low, it can tell, and you got a generator, the electric start generator can say, generator, start up, start powering me up. And the batteries come in over here, and it's got 3 different, you can have 3 different strings of solar panels for an MPPT charge controller that come in on all these here. But, let's see. One might ask my total system cost. There we go. The first one up there that isn't complete yet, I will complete it. It'll be somewhat like this, except it'll be about, this was it 3,000 watt hours?
Yes.
I think that other Dewey supplement, I think my calculation is about twice the size, but it'll be 12 volts. And I did that for ham radios and field days and stuff like that. But it's $1,250 for the 8 3.2 volt lithium iron phosphate cells. They're about this big, by about this tall, by about that thick, and there's 8 of them. The battery management system was $136, and the Samlex pure sine wave inverter was $430. You can get cheaper inverters, but I wanted one that I knew would work fine, last a long time, and not make a bunch of RF noise. The Bluetti AC200P, that's my version of that Opus. When I got it, it was $13.99 and off of Amazon. And when I looked it up the other day, it's down to $11.99. So prices are dropping somewhat on that. For the whole house system, the solar system and battery backup to run the whole enchilada, the whole homestead, about $7,900 for the Solar 15K, and I think they periodically run some specials on it. This was eligible for the 30% tax credit. Basically, everything I've got here, I think, was. The Blue Sun 460 watt bifacial panels, 36 of them were almost $9,000. The server rack batteries was about the same. I don't have a lot of people will ground mount their, you can put the solar panels on the roof, and I thought about putting them on the roof of the barn, but I wasn't sure if it was engineered to hold them. Plus, I got some shading from trees on the barn, so I decided to put them linearly about 60 feet away, but about a 100-foot drop off to a valley, where I'm going to build what I call a solar pavilion, basically kind of like a gazebo with a slanting roof, and put the panels on it. And I've already got a lot of materials to do that. I'm guesstimating it'll cost me somewhere around $3,000 to build that. And I'll put the panels on that, and roughly another $3,000 for miscellaneous cabling, wiring devices, and other stuff for a complete system. Questions?
What's the total on that?
Pardon?
You got total on that?
No.
Okay.
33,000.
About 35,000.
I got a question.
Sure.
On your solar panels, I'm not familiar with them, but I've had this question asked to me, and I can answer it. If you get another one of your panels, or you get lights on there, do they not charge when you generate electricity, if your light cooking on? You know, like in the morning,
Yeah.
your beautiful lights on the windshield, if that's on your panels, will that stop them from working?
Anything that shades it is gonna reduce the output. And for instance, if you got a 3-foot wide by 4-foot tall panel, 5-foot tall panel, if you give maybe 10% shading on it, it might reduce your output in that panel by 50%. It's, the shading hurts you a lot more than you would expect it to. And when you're hooking your panels in strings, where that solar 15K, it'll take the DC voltage input from your solar array will be up to 500 volts. So you may have, I think my panels are like 41 volts, so I'll have a bunch of them in series to up the voltage. And the advantage to that is you don't, for the same amount of power, you have much smaller conductors. I'm still gonna need, where I'm gonna put my panels, I'm gonna have probably 10 gauge wire. And, well, for instance, a 250 foot roll of 12-2 with ground Romex, 5 years ago was probably 30 or 40 bucks. I think $100 at Menards now, and it was 117 bucks the other day at Home Depot. And I was watching a YouTube the other day where apparently we used to mine some copper in the United States, but the environmentalists have shut down. I don't think we mine lead. I don't think we mine copper anymore. I think Chile was a major producer. The long and the short of it is, it's anticipated that the copper prices as high as they are now, that within the next year it's supposed to double. So if you're going to build something that's going to use copper, I will stock up on it sooner rather than later.
My son, he runs a tree service out there. He went into people's places, cut trees down, so there wouldn't be any interference from that. You know, trees, same thing on satellite dishes. We'll cut down the beautiful trees to get a satellite, you know, and I hate that. But like I said, but you know how you had your tree and something was over your panel?
Yeah.
So you're gonna lose 50% of that panel from power because
Well,
of the tree line?
where I'm going to put the panels, it's clear for a long ways to the south, so there won't be the only shading will be from clouds, not trees, where my 36 panels are ultimately going to go.
Well, you had 3 there.
Oh, those 3?
You had
When I get, actually, since I got Webster Electric to the barn now, my little portable power station, like that, the Blue Eddy, as of today, it's not even hooked up. So I don't even need those 3. It'll probably, we're living just outside of Springfield now, we've been for the late 80s, since the late 80s. I'll probably take a little Blue Eddy back there, and so if we have a power outage, I can just use it to power our freezers and refrigerators and stuff, rather than have to fire up a gas generator. Because not one nice thing that, I don't know if it was mentioned about these, they don't make any noise. So, if hard times come and you have electricity your neighbors don't, and you're running off of one of these and some solar panels, your neighbors aren't going to hear it. So,
every year the world turns over a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Different seasons and stuff. Is there a calculation or something you gotta have to put your panels at? Because, if it turns this way, it's,
well, yeah, you're talking about some panels say for like summertime, you want it more like this because the sun is more overhead. And then December 21st, your winter solstice, the sun's it starts off in the east and comes up in an arc like that. And so you want it angled more like that for optimal generation. They say that the price of solar panels has gotten so cheap that for most people say it's not worth the cost to either have a mounting arrangement to adjust the tilt from summer to winter, or they have some fancy ones that not only adjust the tilt like that, but they can track it as it goes across the sky. That used to be a little more prevalent, but the cost of them, most of them are made in China, but right now the cost is ridiculously cheap. I get some mail direct from some Chinese companies, and I already had what I needed, so I wasn't really interested, but I'm thinking 15 cents a watt for buying by the pallet load of solar panels. I'm, wow, that's really ridiculous, and I don't know how good they are, but years ago, it was $3 or $4 a watt for solar panels, but they've got it's pretty easy to get them for 50 cents a watt nowadays in kind of large scale. And if you buy a whole pallet load, it's cheaper with the shipping per panel. And of course, if you buy a shipping container load, they're even cheaper per panel still. Questions? Yeah.
When you build your solar pavilion, are you planning on putting it on a mount so you can move it?
No. I don't think, I toyed with that idea, having something where it's going to be about 20 feet by 30 feet. Yeah. And so I've got some some steel bar joists that I got from, they were tearing down a building a while back and got fairly cheap. So I'm going to use them. And I thought about making it to where I could get a forklift down there, my Kubota with pallet forks in the front to basically raise it up in the wintertime and then fasten it there and then lower it. But I figure realistically, with all the panels I've got, we're going to have hopefully very efficient appliances and efficient household. I think that I will probably be generating more electricity than we will consume with a fixed mount. So, some of the stuff is kind of a scientific wild ass guess as to what's going to work and what's not going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan, you mentioned you had bifacial panels also, and that gives you about 15% more.
Say again?
You had mentioned you had bifacial panels, which actually, if you mount those, they have either like a clean stone or white stone, it'll give you about 15% more efficiency out of those panels. Also, like that solar generator you're talking about, those are down to about $69.99 now. And panels over at that Missouri Wind and Solar, they got some 410 watt panels for $185 a piece. Now they are 48 volts.
Are they used?
Those particular ones are, but they've got ones that aren't used for in that same price range. So, but they're only about 370 watts. So they
Yeah, still, you got to look at dollars per watt. It'll be interesting to find out my solar pavilion, as I call it, the front of it, facing south, I plan on having 8 or 10 feet tall, with about a 37 degree angle on it, so the back will be quite a bit higher, but I'm thinking, I've slept since I calculated, but I'm thinking about 27 feet front to back, and I was thinking it's maybe 40 feet side to side. So it'll be considerable, but I figured put picnic tables and stuff down under, and I'll probably put white crushed limestone because the bifacials are supposed to generate power coming from the top, and if you get light coming from the bottom, like it reflects off of like gravel, they will generate from the bottom. I think these are rated 460 watts, but if memory serves me right, they said if you've got a good background where you'll get some light reflected from the bottom, they can make up to 550 watts a piece. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's quite a bit more. And part of me says, I hope that maybe that doesn't work out quite so well, because I think that if they, with the bifacial part, I'm probably exceeding the maximum input on the solar 15K with 36 of those. And I'd hate to have to disconnect some of them because they were putting out just too much power. Anyhow, more questions? Or comments?
Last question, and then we gotta go to the next
I
speaker.
heard once, like the solar panels on a house, their lifespan is 15 to 20 years. Is this true? And is there a difference if you buy cheaper panels or more expensive panels?
Lifespan of solar panels, I think normally their time frame, they basically, my understanding is that they linearly decay, or that their output drops off. And I'm thinking that the lifespan normally is to where it's 80% of what it was when it was new. So if you've got, say, 20-year lifespan, and it's down to 80%, that doesn't mean it just quits producing. It's just, it may only be 80% of what it was when it was new.
Only a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's not like after 20 years they're dead.
Right, and they normally, now, if you have a bad hailstorm and you know, softball size hailstones hit, that's a different problem. I would not put them on a regular roof because at some point in time, you're gonna, it's an asphalt shingle roof, it's gonna need to be redone. And the cost of taking your solar panels off and all the racking off, redoing the roof and everything, plus additional penetrations in the roof, which is gonna make more chances of a leak. And for people that live in the city and want to have a solar system, that may be their best option. But I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. Anyhow, I think that was it, so.
Yep, we gotta move on. Thank you, I appreciate it, Alan, it's great. If you have specific questions about solar, Alan's the guy to talk to tonight, so he'll be here. Okay, I've got an hour presentation, and I've got 19 minutes. So hang on, we're gonna go fast. I'll answer questions at the end. So what types of situations would you potentially lose power? What's that? I still didn't hear you. Ice storm. Yeah, that's what started me prepping. Ice storm would lose power. What else? An EMP. That's going to be a long term. Electromagnetic pulse is a weapon, or a CME would be a solar flare, potentially lose power there. What else? Squirrels. Absolutely. Squirrels happen. Natural disaster. Tornado. Earthquake, possibly, those types of things. If you're in Florida, it's a hurricane. There's lots of different scenarios. It could just be a car wreck that took out a light pole near you, right? It happens, okay? So those are the types of scenarios. But we're going to talk about your needs are going to be different based upon if you're planning on a power outage for a few hours. For a few hours, what do you do with your refrigerator? Just don't open it. Okay, that's all you got. Just don't open it. Okay? But you may need some light. You may want your recliner to work. You might want your CPAP machine to work. You know, whatever. You may need something for a few hours. What if it's a few days or a few weeks, like the ice storm we had in 2007? We were without power 2 weeks approximately.
16 days.
16 days for different people, different places. But if you're going to be a few days or a few weeks, your power needs that you want to work is going to be different. Now, if you look at the bottom of your notes, the first page of your notes, at the very bottom, there's a discussion question. And it said this: what items in your home do you want to power for a power outage if it lasts? And then we got the 3 columns. I hope you wrote something there. Most of you probably didn't, okay? But hopefully you go home and write something there. But what do you want to work in your house that's electrical in those different scenarios? You go to the last one. What if it's long term? What if we have an EMP that China lobs at us and it works like they want it to, and our electrical infrastructure is fried, and we're not going to have power back for any conceivable amount of time? What electrical items do you want to work? Probably not going to be your television. Okay? But most of you would probably want some lighting. Okay? Maybe you want health equipment if you need an oxygen, or you need a CPAP, those type of things. What if you want electrical, a refrigerator to work, or a freezer to work, or your oven, or your water well? Those are all possible things we want. So you Everybody's different. So you need to write down on your list what you want to work in that situation. That's the basis of the starting point for everybody in the room. What do you want to work? And you gotta be somewhat reasonable, okay? Unless you've got an unlimited budget, okay? So what do you want to work? So how do you determine your needs? Your electrical needs. It's always best to find items that don't use electricity or that use less electricity. So for your heat, many of you may have an electrical furnace. So it not only does the blower take electricity, but the actual heating element takes electricity. You have electric heat. That takes a lot of electricity. But there are alternatives. You could go to the same furnace that has an electrical blower, but it is propane or natural gas heating element. That takes a lot less electricity. Okay? Or you could go to a wood fireplace. Or you could go to a pellet stove. There are options that you can consider that don't take electricity. Example for my house, I have a heat pump, which is an electrical source of heat. But one of my plans is I have a wood burning fireplace on one floor, and I have a wood stove on another floor. Those are my emergency options. So in an emergency, when I'm calculating my needs, I don't put anything in there for heat. Why? Because I'm not going to use my normal heater. I'm going to use my wood fireplace and my wood stove. And so I prep wood, I don't prep electrical. So you've got to think of things that are going to use less electricity. Think of modern things. A great modern option is a pellet stove. That's a great option. Requires, in most cases, very little electricity, and you prep pellets. Or maybe you've got old-fashioned options that are alternatives. What would that be? Gas cook stove. What about a wood cook stove? What about a wood cook stove?
Gas cook stove, what I like about it is I can heat my house with this, and I done it back in the 16 days there.
Okay.
4 burners burning, heat my house, and I can
So
cook.
it's a gas cook stove to cook with and to heat your home with.
Right.
Yeah, so those are options. I mean, all kinds of different options, but open up your mind to what you can do to get things that produce that require less electricity or that require no electricity when you make your list. Then, knowing your needs is all about watts. Now, how many of you in this room are math challenged? No, not stupid. You're math challenged. You're probably artistic or something like that. See, I'm not artistic, but I love math. Well, this is really all about a little bit of science and a lot of math in determining your watts. So you math challenge people, you are going to have to pay a little more attention here, okay? Everybody else may already get this, but it's all about watts. So after determining what items you want to operate, then determine their power consumption in watts. Now, watts are typically always calculated per hour. So if I have a 60-watt light bulb, how much power does it consume? 60 watts per hour. Does that make sense? So if I run a 60-watt light bulb for 3 hours, I will have used 3 times 60, which is 180. I will have used 180 watts. So when they say a unit like this has a 3,000-watt battery, once I calculate how much I'm using, I'll know how long that lasts, because it has 3,000 watts of battery. That all kind of makes sense? So how do you determine how much watt consumption? Well, we talked about this, a watt meter, okay? I've got one of those two over here on my table. I bought it last week for 13 bucks. A great investment, but it only works on 110. Your normal plug-in outlets, if you need 220, 240, you're gonna have to go to something like this. It's about 100 bucks. And this will allow you to clamp around one leg of the wire, and I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail about that, but it'll allow you to test, like for example, your water well and that type of thing. You would do so inside your electrical panel. So if you're not comfortable and familiar with electrical, this is probably not the tool for you to use, because you're gonna have to open up your electrical panel, find a single leg of the wire, put it around that wire, and it'll tell you how many amps it uses. Then you multiply amps times volts to get what? Watts. And watts is what we want to know. Okay. So determine how many watts each thing. So let's say you put 5 things on your list. I want to run lights, I want to run the refrigerator, I want to run the freezer, I want to run the water well. Determine how much watts they use. Okay? You also have to determine their continuous watts, or their operating watts, and then their surge. That's that extra energy it needs to start the motor. Okay? And all your generators, when we're talking about those, this one has 3,500 continuous watts, but it has 4,375 surge watts. So it's made, and even these units are made to have a little extra power, because it doesn't need that surge, but for literally, in most cases, seconds. It surges real high for a few seconds, and then it runs continuously. Okay? We'll talk a little more about that later, but you need to know it's continuous operating wattage and it's surge wattage. Rotating consumption, we'll talk not much about that, but it's the idea that you don't run everything in your house at one time, right? So if you plan a generator that will operate your water well, which is a high consumption item, you don't operate your water well all the time. It comes on for 1 minute, when you're taking a shower, or 2 minutes when you're taking a shower or something. Then it's off, and it comes back on again later. Well, if you know when something's coming on and turning off, you don't have to plan enough energy for everything to be on at once. You rotate your consumption. I'm going to use my cooking stove. I'm going to use 2 burners to cook dinner at a time period when I'm not using the water well. Okay? Where I'm going to run a portable heater sometime when I'm not cooking dinner. So you're going to rotate your consumption, and that means you don't have to buy as big of a generator. Does that kind of make sense? Okay? So plan that logistically in your head. So determining your watts, one of the ways you can do it is data plate. So this is a refrigerator data plate. Okay? Excuse me. And it uses, in this case, 570 watts. That's its peak. Okay? For startup purposes. Here's another example of data plate. This is off of a 3-ton air conditioning unit. And guess what? It doesn't tell us watts. So how do we figure out watts? Amps times volts equals watts. So we do the math. I know you people don't like wet math, but we're going to say 230. That's your volts times 60.5 amps. That's going to tell you the number of watts that it draws when it's on. But if you pay attention to your air conditioning system, just because you have the thermostat turned on, it doesn't run all the time. It comes on for a little while, thermostat turns it off. It comes on for a little while, thermostat turns it off. Okay? So it gives you an idea of how much energy you're going to need. By the way, unless you've got lots of money, you're not going to run an air conditioner, a whole house air conditioner, when the power's out. They take a lot of electricity. A whole lot. So what's your alternatives? Open the windows, run a fan, live in the basement. There's options, but in most cases, you're not going to be running your air conditioner. So here's the little kilowatt device that I have. I put it on my refrigerator for 24 hours. All you do is you plug this into the wall, and then plug your refrigerator into it, and it does everything else. You don't have to press a button. You don't do nothing. plug it into the wall, then plug the appliance into it, and it begins tracking. So we did a 24-hour sample, in this case, my refrigerator in my house, which is a large refrigerator, when it was running, its continuous operation was 58.5 watts. For 24 hours, it used 1.76 kilowatts, so 1,760 kilowatts in a 24-hour period. Okay? So a unit like this that's 3,000 watts could run my refrigerator for about 2 days. Okay? It tells you exactly what it is. This is its peak, it's high. So when it kicked on, the surge for my refrigerator was 705. So for a split second, its high was 705 watts, literally for probably 1 or 2 seconds. And then it would go down to 58.5 while the compressor ran. Then there's another picture that I didn't have room to put on here, but its normal consumption, just when it's just sitting there, was 1.6 watts. And that's enough to run the computer control circuitry and that type of thing. When you open the doors and the lights came on, it went to 5 watts. Okay, so all that kind of counts. Questions on there? So that's the meter, the kilowatt meter, the data plates. Oh, the last picture I have here is the multimeter. That again, you do this in the panel. This is again, if you have some electrical experience, but you can find the right wire. There's a single wire here that's through my device for my water well. When my water well kicks on, it pulls 28.82 amps. That's what this will tell you is amps. Times, excuse me, 240 volts calculates about 7,000 starting watts. So if I'm going to start my water well, and I have a 1.5 horsepower, which is typical for this area, I'm going to need 7,000 watts to start it. Then once it's running, it runs at 10.61, again, times 240 volts. That's about 2,500 watts continuous. But literally, when I was testing this, I would run the water till the pump kicked on. It would take about 5 minutes in most cases for my pump to kick on, and then it only would run from 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. That's all it would run. So it doesn't run continuously, but it just fills the tank back up and then it shuts off. But you gotta know those numbers. Types of units, 4 that we can consider tonight. I got 3 minutes. Fuel generators, like this, or you get the whole house kind that sit on the ground outside. They're typically natural gas or propane. Solar systems and solar generators. So generators in general, like this, you have gasoline ones, which are the most popular. You have diesel ones, which are typically your larger units, as a general rule. Propane ones, and then you have multi-fuel. I highly recommend a multi-fuel. You can get a dual fuel, just 2 fuels, or you get a tri-fuel that'll run on any of the 3 of them. You pay more money for those options, but I highly recommend them. That way, you're not stuck with just one type of fuel. Whatever you do, in my opinion, you want something that operates off propane. Why is propane the best choice, in my opinion?
Doesn't go bad.
It never goes bad. Ever. Gasoline and diesel, no matter what fuel additives you put or whatever, they all eventually go bad. And gasoline, 6 months or so, diesel, maybe a year, depending on how you store it and what additives you put. You can store a lot of it. Propane, I put in a 500-gallon tank. It's easy to do. You see them all the time. We've got a picture of one here in a minute. You also, when you're choosing generation, you want a portable one or a stationary one. Stationary ones are the Generac or the Kohler ones that are, about this big and next to your house. Those are options. I've had 3 of them at the different places I've lived or worked. They're good options. You got to make sure that you keep the maintenance up on them, check on them, but they take a lot of juice, they cost a lot of money, okay? A Generac for your typical house with the transfer panel, the unit, the installation and everything is $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, depending on what size you want and what you do yourself as far as installing it. They're pretty expensive, but they do work, and they come on instantly. Within 20 seconds, it comes on all by itself. That's what the transfer panel does. And will power almost everything in your house, again, depending on the size of unit you want. So those are stationary ones. Portable ones we're more familiar with, like this. This one doesn't have wheels, but some of them have wheels, depending on the size. You can move them around. So the downsides here to generators, they make noise. I highly recommend, if you have the money, spend the extra and get the quiet versions. Some of them, like I was looking online today, in the lower 60s as far as decibels, and that's about the sound of a dishwasher. Why is that important? Operational security. If you're the only one in the neighborhood or the area that has a generator and electricity's out, guess what? They can hear it from a long ways away if it's loud. So I recommend getting a quiet one. They are more expensive. Make sure you understand the maintenance. Maintenance on these fuel generators, you got filters and spark plugs and those types of things. Make sure you understand that. Make sure you've got the cords to get the power where you need to get them to. Connection to the house. So I highly recommend, if you have a portable generator, that you get a connection kit. These, depending on how long you want the cord and that type of thing, are $75 to $100. And they include a box that gets mounted by an electrician on the outside of your house. Then they have a special cord, and they come with different kinds of connections. So make sure you get the right kind of connection for your generator. But then this just plugs into the house, and the other end plugs into your generator. You leave your generator outside, you secure it, so no one walks off with it, and this connects it to your house in a safe manner. What you also want, in addition to this, that is right here, but it's important, is an interlock device. It's a piece of metal that goes on your electrical panel that makes sure that when you are running your generator, and the electrical lineman that's coming down the road to fix your electricity, you don't backfeed your electricity and shock him to death. It's called an interlock device. They're only about 20 or 30 bucks, but they are specific to your electrical panel. So you got to know make and model of your electrical panel, and you install the interlock device that makes sure that you're not backfeeding electricity from your generator to your electrical line. They make transfer switches. They're more common with the big whole house generators, but they transfer that automatically and typically do it within 15, 20 seconds. Again, if you got the money, those are nice options. If not, then you've got to wheel your own generator out if that's the choice you make. You must have adequate fuel. Must have adequate fuel. This particular unit says it'll run 9 hours at 68 decibels. 68 decibels is about like a vacuum cleaner. So 9 hours, and it says up here 3.4 gallons. So, you got to have the money to run it, but you don't have to run it continuously. You run it when you need it for the things you've got. Okay? But you got to have fuel. That's one of the reasons I like propane, because you got lots of fuel stored and it doesn't ever go bad. By the way, no generator should ever be ran 24/7. Okay? They just aren't made for that. They will prematurely wear out, so you got to give them a break. Portability, fuel consumption. These are considerations when you're buying it. How portable is it? Do you want to be able to take it places or not? How much does it weigh? How much fuel is it going to consume? Some people are like, man, I'm going to get the biggest generator I can. Let's go 13,000 watts. 13 kilowatts. Well, that's great. You'll be able to power anything you want. But you know what? That generator is going to suck the gas. Okay? And fuel is not an unlimited resource in most cases. So if you do the right calculations and figure out just exactly how much you need, maybe a little bit extra, but not a lot extra, and get the right size generator, and it won't take up as much fuel. So what are your fuel sources and how you're going to store them? What is the noise level? THD. I just went blank. Alan, help me. Total harmonic distortion. So pure sine wave, we talked about that earlier. There's also modified sine wave. Modified sine wave, which is your cheaper generators, will not properly operate electrical motors, like for your refrigerator sometimes. It depends on how bad the distortion is, but it is specifically dangerous for sensitive electronics that have circuit boards. Okay, so if you want a generator or an inverter, both of those apply here. You want something with a total harmonic distortion of typically they say less than 3%. But the higher it gets, and some generators are like 25%. That is total junk power, and it's going to ruin the stuff you plugged into it. But the lower THD, the better. You got to make sure you secure your generator so it doesn't get stolen. Make sure you have the connections, the cords, and the interlock device for it. I'm trying to hurry up. So fuel storage. This is a 55-gallon drum that I use for my fuel storage with my gasoline. I use stable inside it, which helps preserve it longer. Then I rotate this out through my lawnmower once a year. So I've got 55 gallons of gasoline and a proper pump to pump it in and out of there. So that's my gasoline storage. But here's my ultimate storage, and it's my 500-gallon propane tank. This cost me tank and fill it up with gas, about $2,000. But then I've got this, what's called a wet fill kit. This is a special add-on that was about another $200. It allows me to fill propane bottles, the small ones, that my generator uses, and my barbecue grill uses. Those small 20-pound tank containers, I can fill them with my big tank. Okay? And if you're going to run that generator, you have to use the small tanks for it. So that's how I get it from here to there. And I have a lot of storage of fuel that never goes bad. Solar systems. Not going to spend a lot of time. Alan talked about that. But there's 3 different types. There's grid tied. This is the one that the solar guy knocking on your door saying, we'd like to sell you a system and you won't have to pay electricity and all that, save you tons of money. That's what they're selling. They're selling the grid tied. Here's what they don't readily tell you. There are no batteries. At the price they're quoting you, it doesn't have any batteries, so it doesn't store electricity. And when the city electrical goes off, when the power line goes off, your system has a fail-safe that will not allow it to give you electricity to your house. Most people think, oh, I got this solar. When the power goes down for the ice storm, my solar panels will give me all this electricity. It will not. If you have a true grid-tied system, there's a safety mechanism that says, if there's no power from the pole, I can't give you electricity. Stay away from these, in my opinion. You can do an off-grid system. You got no electricity at all. You can't see a telephone pole for miles away. You're in the middle of nowhere and you want an off-grid system. Those are great. Great. But they are expensive because you got to buy a lot of batteries and a lot of solar panels to run everything. A hybrid system, which is what Alan had, is also expensive. But it has the benefits of being grid-tied and the benefits of being off-grid in one system. You're connected to the power poles, so they can provide you lots of electricity, okay? But you're also connected with batteries that do both. And so that's what Alan has. He has this hybrid system. Absolutely, in my opinion, the best option if you're going solar, but it's also an expensive option. So, solar in general is expensive. It's cheaper if you do it yourself. Several people have mentioned Missouri Wind and Solar. They're out in Seymour, okay, out on Highway 60 here. They are a great place for do-it-yourselfers. They offer seminars, like 2-day seminars. That, I don't know if anyone taking one. There's a little bit of money, $200 for a 2-day seminar, and they tell you everything you need to know about making your own system. Of course, they want you to buy their components from them, but you don't have to. but they will tell you. So I absolutely recommend Missouri Wind and Solar for at least their seminar. I'll tell you how to do it. EMP, real quick, people ask, the actual EMP the solar panels themselves. So we're talking just the panels. There's only one component that it would be affected by an EMP. And it's in that little box right there. And it's these little bypass or blocking diodes. They keep the electrical power when you got shade. They keep the power from going backwards in the system. These little diodes, you can get this package here that I have with my stuff. I think there's 30 of them here for like $10. But it's the part that will be blown by an EMP, and it's right in there. Now that's just the panels. I'm not talking about the charge controller and the inverter. Those things will be fried too. But if you're worried about the panels, it's the diodes that are the issue. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get out of here quick. Let's see here. The advantages are, well, you got to understand the sun and how it affects your panels. If you get a 100-watt panel, you don't get 100 watts every minute of daylight. You got to understand how it is. But it is an unending source. You don't have to worry about fuel. You don't have to worry about running out of gas. It is an unending source. They are quiet, which is a huge benefit, and they have low maintenance. Specialized solar options. Well pumps. We've been talking about well pumps and how much juice they take. Here's what I just recently purchased. Haven't got it installed yet. And I actually won't install it until I need it for the most part. But a solar well system. So about $600, $700 is why I just bought it. My system came with 4 panels, a charge controller, and a pump operating panel. Okay? And then it has a special pump that you replace down at the bottom of your well. And it will provide you water, in theory, anytime the sun is shining. Now, it's not high pressure water. It's more like just coming out of a spigot type pressure, but it does provide water. And there are lots of options and lots of expenses, but again, $600 or $700 for my deep well, 200 feet. The kit I got will go down to 230 feet. But I can get water out of my well from a dedicated system that's solar for $600 to $700. And I found that to be a great option. I can talk more about it later. Smaller things for charging your electronics, your water heater or your home heating take lots and lots and lots of electricity. If you're really wanting hot water during an SHTF event where you don't have electricity, you either need to have a gas water heater, or you need to look at like solar heating of water, those types of things, or heating it with a campfire or something like that. Because running a water heater off of a generator and that type of thing is not very good option. So different cooking things, do a solar oven. We're talking about alternatives here. A solar oven, you cook on a wood stove, cook on a campfire. Look for tools with built-in solar. You can get flashlights that have a little solar panel. Those are all options. Solar generator, this is what we talked about. I actually hate the name. Why do I hate that name?
It's not a generator.
It is not a generator, right? This is a solar generator. It is a battery. Okay? It does not generate anything. It is chargeable via a solar panel. That's why they call it, I guess, a solar generator. But it is not, itself does not generate anything. So I have this unit here. It has a solar panel that folds. The Halo, it's a small version of that. You can look at it. You can make them homemade for less money. Dan, where's Dan? Dan right here. So Dan has showed us before in previous classes how to make this really portable version. He also had one that's on a dolly that he brings along. And he's going to do a class. What date are you doing it on? The 23rd of February, which is a Friday. He has all the details, and you see him tonight. If you want to go to his class, it's free. You just have to buy the stuff to make one of these. This is a great little thing. I plan on being there. But you got to buy the stuff. You'll show up at his house on the 23rd of February, kind of an all-day activity almost. And we're going to build these together. And this is a small solar generator. It has a big battery in here, has a little inverter. You can plug things in, it's got a flashlight. Really a cool thing. He showed it to us before. Anything you want to add real quick?
The battery box, the lights and everything is set up is less than $200. And I've also got a 60-watt folding panel there that's on another 100. You can use to keep lights charged. And I've got a little 150-watt inverter, so I can plug items into that so that they can use it for the cord. So I can charge the light. That's for running your small electronics.
Great for charging your phone, or that type of thing.
Your phone, your radios, your optics, or any other small electronics.
Good. Okay, see Dan if you want to come to his house on the 23rd and build one of those. You know, only cost is you got to buy the materials. These things are portable, they're silent, they are slow to recharge, particularly if you're using the solar to recharge them. They can't usually operate large appliances like wells and your oven and those types of things. Okay, that's it. The last thing I want to show you before I let you go is, anybody notice this light bulb that's sitting up here? Okay, it's been on. I turned it on when I got here at 5 o'clock. It is a rechargeable light bulb. Awesome little thing I ran across. So how do you charge it? You charge it by putting it in a light socket, a real light socket, your ceiling fan, your reading lamp, whatever. You can charge it by putting it in a real light socket. You can also buy these little adapters. I think they were $4 for $5. So you can screw it in and then plug it in the wall to charge it. It takes 6 hours to charge it. Okay, I just keep it in my reading lamps beside my recliner. Okay, so that every time I use the light bulb, because it's just a normal light bulb, as far as using it, I use it like a normal light bulb. But it charges, it has a battery, and it charges itself so that take this little adapter that it comes with, do that, it's got a little hook, and then it comes on.
My twin brother loves those.
These are great. How much do you think something like this would cost? $30. Okay, depending on if you buy, they come in packs of 4, so 4, 8, 12, 16. I bought 16 of them for $48. So what's that, a little over $3 a piece? Amazon. I'll put a link on our Facebook page.
How long do you think it's running for?
Okay, it charges for 6 hours and it runs for 3 to 4. Okay, so I was going to pass them around, but we are out of time, so you can come up to the table and look at them. That one's a little bit dimmer because it's been going for 3 hours. This one's full brightness and does love them. I absolutely love them. So pick you up at least a pack of 4 of them. Put them in your ceiling fans. Put them in your reading lamps. Wherever, and then as you're using it in a normal daily basis, it stays charged. Then when the power goes out, just unscrew it, put it in this special base, and you got a light bulb.
16 of them for how much?
$48, I think. Amazon. I'll put a link up on the website later tonight. Okay, we are out of time. Sorry to keep you late. Hopefully we'll see you.